One of my favorite memories is of a spontaneous visit to a traditional Singaporean restaurant. That day, my husband and I had taken the kids along with us to visit a local ceramic shop. They sold these beautiful handcrafted design tableware, and I wanted to go and shop around to just build on my obsession of buying beautiful stuff for my kitchen. Our visit ended up lasting a lot longer than we had planned, and so the hosts of the shop decided to recommend a restaurant that was just 2 stores down, and it was this beautiful. When I say beautiful, I'm talking about senses. The smell of the food was just so inviting, so delicious. The restaurant owner found us a table, and we just allowed our senses to be totally satisfied. Today's recipe is a traditional Singapore noodle recipe called Hokkein Noodles. Now, it can be served as a fried noodle, and it can also be served as a braised noodle. Both ways are very delicious, and I'm going to show you how to prepare it. This is a wonderful traditional Singaporean recipe that basically incorporates a lot of the tradition that defines Singaporean culture. It's at the crossroad of East and West. It's at the crossroad of so many different flavors and ingredients, and the end result is always something spectacular. The broth is traditionally a pork-based broth, but I'm going to be making it with a beef broth. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a lot of wonderful seafood flavors. Here I've got prawns, which I'm going to be putting into my noodles, but I've reserved all the prawn heads and the shell, and we're going to fry it and add it into the broth, and this is going to just add a lot of delicious flavor. While my broth is bubbling away, I'm going to quickly fry my prawn shells and prawn heads. Always start off by adding some vegetable oil to your wok. Allow the oil to heat before you add the prawn head and shells. And I'm gonna fry for a few minutes until it has a beautiful light pink color. The aroma that's coming from the prawn head and shell is simply incredible. And I'm just gonna take the shells and add it to my broth. And allow this to simmer with the broth for about 15 to 20 minutes so that all the flavors and the aromas beautifully infuse together. Because this is the most important part of our recipe. In the meantime, I'm going to start preparing all the rest of the ingredients that I'm going to need for this recipe. Because one thing I've learned with Asian cooking is that the final cooking process is a really quick process. So when you have all your ingredients ready, it's just so much simpler. Here I have some cloves of garlic, which I'm going to roughly chop. Just mash it down and just roughly chop. Here I've got some chives. Now this is the local chives I found in our supermarket. Traditionally, you'd want to have garlic chives. It has a much more beautiful, garlicky aromatic scent to it. And that really also adds and contributes to the flavor. But if you can't find it, regular chives or even green onions will be fine. And what I'm gonna do is just chop them to about an inch and a quarter length. You'll notice that I'm making large quantities of everything. And the reason is that I'm gonna be making 2 bowls now, but I'm gonna save all the ingredients for dinner when the kids come home and just make it fresh for them when they're ready to eat. So our chives are ready, our garlic is ready. Here are the prawns that I've kept the tail on, but I've deveined and deshelled. And here I've got some squid. I've kept the head and the whole part of the squid. You can prepare the squid in 2 ways. Either you can boil it for a couple of minutes in the broth, or you can also opt to fry it. I'm going to show you how to prepare it in the broth. In my little ladle, I'm just going to add my squid's head and the body, and I'll just place it in the broth for a couple of minutes. You don't want to cook it for more than 2 minutes because it can get quite tough if it's overcooked. You want the color to have a nice translucent color, and that's when you'll know it's ready. And by doing this, you're adding more flavor to your broth. And now that it's ready, I'm just going to reserve it on the side in the serving platter. And I'm going to allow the squid to cool down before I cut into little rings. And I'll do the same. I'm just going to take 4 pieces for now. I'm just going to allow it to cook in the broth until it has a nice pink color. And once it has a beautiful soft pink color, I will drain. And just place it on the side with your squid. Once your squid has cooled, just cut into 1/2-inch ringlets. Now back to the wok. I'll start off again by heating some vegetable oil. I'm gonna make a small quantity of the noodles, good for about 3 to 4 people. As a rule of thumb, I'd say crack 1 egg per person and add them to your heated oil. Gently scramble the eggs. Then reserve the eggs on the side. Add more vegetable oil and add some chopped garlic and quickly fry. Once the garlic has a beautiful fragrant smell, you can start frying the eggs with the garlic and just toss everything together. Add in your egg noodle and your rice noodle. Give everything a toss. And we're going to slowly start to ladle in the broth. And you continue adding about 1.5 to 2 cups of broth until the noodles are well hydrated. Add in your chives. This smells incredible. And your squid and prawns. For color, I'm adding some dark soy sauce, not too much. And for a bit of saltiness, I'm gonna add some light soy sauce. I'm just gonna add 1 more ladle of the broth. You want your noodles to have a slightly wet consistency. And we are ready. Now comes my favorite part. Time to serve our noodles. The aromas in this dish are insane. And here is my gorgeous hawker style, traditional Singaporean Hokkein noodles with prawns and squid. I'm gonna top with some extra chives to give it beautiful color. Add some lemon wedges on the side because this adds more to the flavor. And here I have some sambal on the side. Hope this recipe takes you on a sensory journey to Singapore until we can travel there very soon. Now comes my favorite part. Time to eat. Some sambal. Give everything a nice mix. By the way, the sambal smells insane. It's got so many beautiful flavors. Seriously, my senses are so happy. Let's give this a go. Guys, this is insane. Until I can go back to Singapore, this is the next best thing.